Jimmy on the beat, boy. Jimmy on the beat, boy. Jimmy on the beat, boy.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Gin College Podcast. I'm your host, John J. II, here with Cody Almasy, College Sports Insider. Cody, how you doing today, buddy?
Blessed, as always, to wake up and breathe this beautiful air on God's green earth. And just happy to be able to join you tonight, my friend. Living a wild, busy life. Always been busy, but adding a baby to that equation has made things a lot more hectic for me. So just happy to be able to make this week work and cut some topics up with you. The college football talking points are getting hot and heavy, especially here in Michigan. Lots of things to talk about tonight. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Ready to get into some college football talk here on a Wednesday, which we're happy to do. Bring it to you a day early. Didn't do a Monday recap this week, so we're going to kind of combine everything into one for everybody this week. So I'm excited to do it. A lot has happened. Going into somewhat of a lull period. It's not a lull, but this coming week, there's not a ton going on as far as competition. There's always good college football on. I don't want to downplay that, but we're looking at a good slate that we had last week that really set the stage going down the stretch, which we're lucky to get into and happy to get into. So I'm blessed, man. I'm great. I'm happy to be here and grateful once again to share this space with you. So what do we got today? I mean, what are we dealing with? Obviously, there's a lot going on with Michigan and the sign stealing accusations. I guess let's start with that. Let's talk about that, chop that up a little bit. Smitty and I talked about it last week, and basically his take on it and somewhat my take too is that this is a lot of noise. This is a lot of distraction from what's really going on, and it's just yet another aim that the NCAA and others, whistleblowers, I would say on both sides, have taken a stab at Michigan in this case, and potentially maybe because they're doing so good, I guess maybe they're going to be put under the microscope. I guess, what do you see as far as an angle for why they're coming after Michigan so hard with the sign stealing accusations we're dealing with?
It's it's a big deal what they're accused of, and nobody wants the team that they're matching up with on any given Saturday to have a competitive advantage of any sort. And on the other side of the ball, that's all you're trying to do is get a competitive advantage over the guy across from you. So there's a lot of talk going on about Michigan, the sign stealing scandal, a lot of gum flapping, and it's just going to keep going on. And we all know how the NCAA handles things at their own pace, and they're going to take their time. You're going to keep hearing news clippings. It's kind of similar to the Mel Tucker stuff, coming out of East Lansing earlier in the year. A lot of people have their opinions about what happened, what transpired, what's evidence, what's damning, but it's all it is right now is hearsay, accusations, allegations, and they hate us because they ain't us, especially given Michigan's success rolling 7-0, and looks like they got a pretty clear-cut path back to the playoffs this year. And I know a lot of teams, opposing fan bases, especially those located in Columbus, Ohio, would love to see us get booted out on a technicality, or even be able to claim that the sign stealing is why the Buckeyes got their asses kicked in Columbus and in Ann Arbor over the last 2 years. And I'll kind of reiterate what Deion Sanders said earlier. Someone asked him about it in a presser, and he said, you still got to stop it. Even if you know it's coming, you still got to stop it. And the way Michigan dominated opponents, I mean, it's not like they're the highest quality of opponents. We all know that. That's a topic of discussion year in and year out. But it's just, I don't think that they have enough to hang them, I guess I should say.
I hear you. Travis Kagi with a comment, close buddy of mine, devout Michigan fan. I can give you my entire playbook, but you still have to stop it. He says, I doubt anything comes of it. And basically, that's what Smitty and I said last week is what is going to come of this. If you have an opportunity to expedite and to take advantage of a loophole, which it seems like Connor Stalions, the staffer for Michigan in this case, has done, then, I mean, by all means, take advantage of it. Do it. If your sign-making method, if your sign-making system as a offensive coordinator, as a assistant on the sidelines, if it's not good enough to be shrouded and to be hid from the light of day from your opponents, then it's not a good enough system, basically, right? If you have the ability to, decipher that and to go and to make it something where you can take advantage of it, then by all means, you should be able to do it. Now, obviously, there's technicalities and legalities surrounding the NCAA and, codes of conduct that need to be abided by, but it seems like they're treading very close to that borderline, that gray area. I think they're almost, if not in that area of gray, they are very close to it. So in this case, I guess, how would they be violating any codes of conduct regarded by the NCAA to be illegal, to be not okay? Because they're kind of painting Michigan in a very bad light without really having all the facts in this case. So what do they have to do to, stay in the clear? And what would they have to do, if not something they already did, to have to face some scrutiny for their actions?
Yeah, I mean, we all know how the court of public opinion operates. I think they're going to be scrutinized no matter what transpires. If they do bring home a national championship, you said it before the show, there'll be an asterisk that people mention when they talk about it just because of all this. And my response to that is the Patriots have a couple asterisks on their Super Bowls, but at the end of the day, do they really think about that? No, I think Tom Brady's still celebrating with 7 rings on his finger, despite Deflategate and videotaping somewhere. And yeah, I think they set it up right. So Counter Stallions, he's toast. You know, he is definitely the scapegoat, and he's suspended right now. He's gonna take all the heat, and I think the way he's being just depicted, I think he'll gladly do it. He'll fall on that grenade and hang the pictures of him with the Big Ten trophy that I seen in the New York Post article today. He'll put them on his wall and tell his kids what he did to make that happen. He's a military guy, and he just has that mindset. I think on his LinkedIn, he said before he wiped all the socials, he would use any and all means to completely destroy the opponent, and that goes as far as learning how they eat and sleep, like some real Uncle Dan, Lieutenant Dan type of stuff there. And it's just I think that Michigan's going to be okay. And you hear video evidence a lot. I'm a dude who routinely knows what cameras are in a stadium and sees the footage and their capabilities of going back. The video footage they probably have is, and it's not of Connor Stallions, it's of people he's supposedly connected to, students. But if he's not the guy with his butt in the seats, I think he's exploiting that loophole for one. And then this footage is not going to be high quality or anything that can really be utilized to, I guess, put the case away is what I want to say. But you said the headline just coming out and painting us in a certain light. It's that kind of thing, saying video evidence, and they're just trying to break new storylines and be the next article that comes out about this, because it's Michigan and they're so high profile and they've been operating at such a high level of success. Last regular season loss was almost 2 calendar years ago. So when you're operating at this level of football, you're going to have people from outside, and you said it before the show, people from within even try to bring you down. So I think kind of that's what we're seeing transpire at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And not to make light of it, but in the movie Act of Valor, where the trooper falls on his grenade, Connor Stallions is essentially the sacrificial lamb for Michigan. I'm sure he was approached by Michigan coaches, personnel, and others and say, hey, Connor, listen, we love you, buddy, but you're going to have to fall on your sword for us here, and we'll make it right for you. We'll make it right for you. But you're going to have to take the fall on this one if things go bad. And he had to have agreed to those terms before he even purchased the tickets for more than 30 games, many of them Big Ten games, allegedly used illegal technology to steal signs. Listen, a lot of this is alleged. A lot of this is not confirmed. So before it's confirmed, before it's really defined in the black and white that there were rules, there were regulations, parameters that were violated, a lot of this that we're hearing and that we're getting fed by the media is hearsay. It's not to be taken as gospel. So I would hate for it. And like I said before the show, if they can take away a Heisman from Reggie Bush, can they take a national championship away from Michigan? And I guess that is still to be determined. That's anticipating they go the distance and win it all. But I guess you also mentioned Deflategate and the Patriots, and they've dodged a few bullets over the years, and they have retained those championships. And you really, even if there are asterisks next to those Super Bowl wins and those rings that were won by the Patriots and Tom Brady and others, they're still Super Bowl wins. They're still counted as Super Bowl wins on paper, and historically looking back, they're going to be looked at as Super Bowl wins for years to come in the history books. So that is what it is. A lot to come on this one. Oh, another comment here from Travis Kagi. Once again, devout Michigan fan. He says, Michigan ain't beating Georgia. Cody comments.
I guess I welcome a Michigan-Georgia rematch. I think J.J. McCarthy is now who Stetson Bennett was when he beat us in the college football playoff 2 years ago. The way he can kind of create, we're going to talk about that word in just a little bit again, but He's just operating and has control of this offense in a way that not many quarterbacks do right now. And I know we don't know until we see better competition, but I think JJ McCarthy, even when their run game is, not hitting on all cylinders, he's able to pick up um, third and longs and just make it happen for that team and consistently. And I think he's just gonna keep getting better as it goes. He's gonna be better after he comes out of Happy Valley with a W, and he's gonna be better after we beat the Buckeyes for a third year in a row. And I hope Georgia makes it, but I don't know. I was feeling the same way last year about this Georgia team. I had my doubts, but with Carson back and without Brock Bowers, I think that Georgia is in some trouble. And Michigan is now the betting favorite to win the national championship, and JJ McCarthy is the betting favorite to win the Heisman after Brock Bowers' injury and the torching of the woodshed in East Lansing by JJ and Wolverines.
Yeah, let's get into that game a little bit. Let's talk about it. So, even though I don't want to, we have to. That's the reality of the situation. So I was watching the whole game. Cody, I told you this. I watch every single play. I suffered through every single drive, every single series, every single 3 and out, pick, fumble, you name it. I watched it, and it was tough to watch. I guess, what are your takeaways from this Michigan win? Not a traditional Michigan State game, Paul Bunyan Trophy game. What do you have to say about this game?
I know I wasn't able to make it on the show the last couple of weeks, but if I would have been, I would have told our fan base and everybody to bet the under on MSU points. It was only at 10.5. I would have took under if it was at 6.5. I expected maybe a field goal or two from the Spartans, but it was an absolute domination from start to finish. And as much as I want to just relish in how amazing it was, it's almost sad because 2 years ago, Halloween, 2 undefeated teams had a bloodbath. And Kenneth Walker willed your Spartans to a magical win, and the rivalry felt like it was back. And now that seems a lot farther away than just 2 years ago, and it's just not as fun as I thought it would have been. You want a little competition from your rival, and
Definitely.
That's not what took place.
Yeah, and that's how I would feel, even as a Michigan. If I was a Michigan fan, or even if I was in the position as a Michigan State fan, say the roles were reversed, I would almost feel like this win is lackluster. It's almost just another game. It doesn't feel the same as a competitive, nose to the grindstone, tit for tat type of Michigan State game. And it's just one of those things where it's just not the season for it. They're dealing with bedlam in the coaching core, lots of trouble to deal with, and it's just not good. Tell you what, though, the little bit of silver lining that I can say is third string quarterback Sam Levitt, the freshman. In those last few drives, they didn't end well, but they were not to his wrongdoing. They were not because of his shortcomings. He showed poise. He showed that he wanted to be on the field. He proved himself, and I see more poise from him more than Noah Kim or Hauser. So that's a glimmer of light. That is the future if he does stay. The problem is, you see any promise with any of these players that are still with Michigan State, they're still young guys, chances are they're going to fall victim to the transfer portal, just given the current state of affairs in East Lansing. That is just the case. And it's just really tough. Travis Kagi says, Urban Meyer to stay. Listen, we can be hopeful. We can pray for a miracle. We spoke about it a couple shows ago where scandal loves company. Urban is he's no stranger to scandal. So he almost seems like he'd be a perfect puzzle piece to fit in East Lansing, but I just don't think it's in the cards based on what I've been reading about, unless there's something completely, in the background, Illuminati style going on with Urban Meyer and higher ups at Michigan State. I don't see it happening. They could blindside us with it, and I would not be displeased. But I think that Urban is, feeling good. He's in his Fox News contributor role, Fox Sports, and he feels good about where he's at. He doesn't need that stress and that pressure, I think, from being a college football coach, especially taking on all this baggage. And I tip my cap to anybody that does, because someone's got to do it at some point.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think Harlan Barnett's the guy either.
He's not.
My wife, she was watching the game with me on Saturday night, and she was commenting on how lost and sad he was kind of looking on the sideline. And if wifey's commenting on the state and expression of a coach, their nonverbal behavior, I think all recruits, players on your sideline with you, they see that kind of stuff, and the writing's on the wall. And I don't know. He's a trooper for still even showing up to work every day at this point, because
all of them are. Everyone on that team, everyone involved with that football program is, they are doing what they got to do, and they're walking the line, and they have to. They have to. Someone's got to do it, and unfortunately, this is the state of affairs, and they got to do it and continue. And they got Minnesota coming up, so they got to deal with that. So that's all I got on it.
Yeah. All right. I just want to hit one more point on the game in East Lansing. Jaden McBurrows, secondary player for Michigan, coming off the bench. Last year in the Michigan State game, was the victim of the tunnel tussle, if you will, and was the one who was the victim of the assault of 6 to 7 MSU players. There's a picture there of him kind of recovering, walking away afterwards. And then fast forward to 2023, he gets in late in the game and he gets an interception, his first career interception. So a little revenge for Jaden McBurrows. And if anyone's deserving of being in pursuit of revenge, it's that man, and he's doing it with a nice little interception. And he got a lot of love from his teammates in the post game. Mike Sainer still, he had the pick six, but made sure to give him some love in the post game interview. And then his quarterback, JJ McCarthy, was behind him, placing the crown atop his head. So it was just a good sight to see, a storyline that didn't get a lot of run, especially with the scandals and all the talk going on around Michigan. Some of these smaller things are getting missed. And that just reminded me of your boy 58 for the Spartans, who on the pick six return, he just turns down and spears Braden McGregor for no reason, man. Just not a good look. And I think he's receiving some locker room punishment as well. But just stuff that kind of flew under the radar with everything that's going on with Michigan this year.
Yeah, insult to injury. That's the basis of that, and that's just another reflection of the state of affairs in East Lansing, in the locker room for Michigan State and the Spartans. They are in shambles. I don't know if I could remember a time where the Michigan State Spartans were in a worse spot than they are right now. Right now, 10/25/23, October 25th, 2023. I don't know if I can think of or place myself in a time period where they're in a worse state. And that doesn't mean a time where they have a worse record than they do now. That's just the state of everything. That's the state of where their coaching's at, where their players are at, where their heads are at, where their image is at. It's not good, man. It's not good. So
let's see. Just in time, a couple weeks from now, you'll have a very good basketball team playing in East Lansing a couple times a week.
Thank God we have that. Because I got a lot of green and white that I want to wear. So
yeah, a great coach in contrast to what's going on now. So just be patient. That's coming soon, my friend. Yeah. Let's take a look around the league here. Open things up a little bit. Former front runner for the Heisman, Michael Penix Jr. and the Washington Huskies struggle against Arizona State, and he needed his buddy Michelle Powell to pick one off and take it 89 yards to the house late, because the Huskies couldn't muster any offense, no touchdowns for Penix or that Washington offense, after being so explosive all year long and just kind of lighting everybody up over there in the Pac-12. They get shut down, and they need a miracle to keep it alive. And yeah, now he has dropped a couple rungs on the ladder as far as the Heisman goes. Definitely not out of the question in a year like this, but yeah, a little bit of dose of reality for Washington. And that Pac-12 in its last year, it's really entertaining, and it's going to come down to the wire again, man.
Yeah, it definitely is. I watched Michael Penix Jr. walk off the field right there at halftime, and they were down, and they weren't looking too good. And he was looking right down. He's like, "Dude, I don't know what to do, man." Kind of like in a state of disbelief. And that transition, I didn't watch the rest of the game, but I just watching that first half performance and watching the kind of the walk to the locker room didn't look good. They didn't look good. They weren't in a good headspace. And Michael Penix Jr., the catalyst of that offense, was not in a good mindset. So you knew things were not going to be good. They held Arizona State to 0 points in the second half, which was impressive. They had to do that. And they outperformed and did well in the second half enough to win. So that's a little bit of you kind of glossed over that game if you're Washington, and you're lucky to get away with a win in that game. Really, you are, and that could have been a blemish on your record. Where now you're still a front runner, you're still highly in contention for the CFP. So you're in a good spot if you're Washington still, but you got to shake yourself off and call that a humbling experience without taking it on the chin. And they got to move on and continue to play well and win games. So
yeah, they still
got
got some big games on their schedule as well, even though they are in a great position to win the Pac-12. Still got USC, Utah, Oregon State, and Wazoo. So a lot of script left to be written for the Huskies and the Pac-12 in general. But we're going to move on, talking about the SEC a little bit. A familiar face working his way back into the power rankings. Nicholas Saban lighting up a cigar on the third Saturday in October after giving one away to Tennessee last year. And it didn't look good early for the Crimson Tide. They were down 20-7, and then they outscored Tennessee 28-0 in the second half to win 38-20. And yeah, just a lifeless volunteer offense after starting pretty hot. And you see Jaden Milroe there cutting it up as Nick Saban is lighting up a stogie. And I know Crimson Tide fans, they've been a little bit quiet this year. They're kind of just watching everything else go on. But this one loss Alabama team, they're sneaking back into the conversation.
Yeah, they are, and you can never really count this team out. I'll be honest, I took Tennessee plus 9.5 in this game, and I felt good about it, especially after the first half. Felt really good about it, and next thing you know, Alabama rears its ugly head, and they come in to that second half and play a great half of football. So can we say we didn't expect it? Of course not. We can say we did expect it from a betting standpoint, especially. And it was just one of those games where it's going to be a rivalry game. It's going to be competitive. And if you lose momentum, and both teams, contrary to popular belief, both teams can have a certain amount of momentum going into whatever point of the game you're in. But in this case, the momentum completely flipped and it went to 0 for Tennessee. Went to 0. They flatlined. And next thing you know, they are in shambles to compete against this Alabama team, which is very strong and they're very resilient. They keep their nose down and they play the game of football regardless of the scoreboard. So I got to tip my cap to Nick Saban and the Alabama offense, Jalen Milroe included. So Jalen Milroe. It has to be recognized that this Alabama team is not down and out. Maybe they were down. Maybe they were questioned. People throwing question marks at them, but this team is not out. And we know how the college football playoff views Alabama and the Crimson Tide, and they view them very highly, regardless of who they have in their roster. It's mostly all about Nick Saban and his tenure, what he's been able to do. And they're looking at that. They're looking at history, historic standings. They're looking at all that. So they're taking all of it into account. They're going to put it in a blender, and we're going to see what comes of it. They have to win out to be in the conversation. That even still might not be good enough to get them in the top 5, regardless of their feelings towards Alabama. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, they definitely have a chance. They have a shot. So,
Yeah, they even though they took that loss to Texas, that's out of their conference until next year when Texas moves over to the SEC. So they're 5-0 in the SEC, and they got Georgia on the other side. Um, Look, they're on a collision course right now, but of course, Alabama they're on a bye week this week, like the Michigan Wolverines, and then November 4th they have to go to LSU. So that's kind of the last check mark on their schedule. They got Auburn obviously to end the year, the Iron Bowl. Anything can happen there, but Auburn's been a little disappointing. So it's really LSU. You get past them, and you should be able to meet up with Georgia in the SEC championship. And I'm looking my chops if I'm Nick Saban.
And that could earn them a spot. A win against Georgia can earn them a spot. I mean, almost undoubtedly. They're in.
Definitely.
I guess, does that game, say Alabama wins that game, they win out, they beat LSU, they beat Auburn. Does Georgia get kicked out because of that, or do they stay in? Kind of like a
Like TCU last year,
like a
how they
TCU
lost.
situation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Exactly.
I guess it depends on who else is really the key players at the point. Who won between Michigan and Ohio State? Did FSU run the gauntlet? We're going to talk about that in just a couple of minutes. But there will be a lot going into it. But I think it definitely gives Alabama a huge reason to get in, especially with how Texas was rolling before the close loss to Oklahoma, and then the injury to Quinn Ewers. So, hey, I think you're in a good position. You control your own destiny if you're Alabama, in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll have to see where the tide turns for the Crimson Tide.
All right,
Ooh.
I talk about Ohio State. They emerged victorious in the shoe on Saturday. Had the early game, the big noon kickoff, I believe, and I know the Penn State faithful. They were really, really hoping Drew Aller was going to come in, and he is going to be, the hope for this offense and to get a win over Ohio State. And Drew Aller struggled mightily. The Buckeye defense held him in check. They didn't find the end zone until under a minute left of play, so pretty much a garbage time tutty for Penn State. And one thing that Penn State doesn't have is an NFL talent like Marvin Harrison Jr. And I mean, really, there aren't many college football teams in the nation with somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr., but he is definitely a difference maker and is able to kind of cover up for the deficiencies that the Buckeye offense is experiencing this year. Their rush numbers are way, way down for who they have in their backfield. And Kyle McCord, he fails to get it to Marvin Harrison as much as he needs to. And if you're watching that game, you can kind of see the frustration coming from MHJ. And I know that Kyle McCord can see it too. And it's just not a good look to see Marvin Harrison Jr. so visibly frustrated with his QB, his young QB, when he's clearly off to the NFL next year. And McCord's just getting started. Kind of not what you want to see from somebody who is clearly the leader of that offense. I mean, I love the dude. He's a great, great talent. I don't love any Buckeyes, but as far as an athlete, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a name we talk about on Sundays for some time to come. And he's the one dude I'm worried about from Ohio State right now, thinking about November 25th when they come back to Ann Arbor. But yeah, it was just really obvious in this game who had the 5-star athletes and then who was lacking them a little bit. And both quarterbacks clearly in transitioning periods, and kind of makes Michigan's schedule look even worse than it already did. If these are the two highest powered offenses that they got to play all year long, so kind of just adds to all the storylines in the Big Ten this year. Not a great look this year.
Yeah, we expected fireworks in this game. Obviously, playing at the shoe, it's going to be tough. It's a lethal environment. It's an unforgiving environment for any opponent to step foot in the in the forbidden stadium they call the Horseshoe, right there in Columbus, Ohio. But we expected more out of Penn State. We expect more out of Drew Aller in that Penn State offense, regardless of who they have. Yes, obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a threat. We know that he's going to be a threat towards Michigan too come the 25th. But we have to be focused on the fact that both these teams are powerhouses, likely leading and are leading. At least last week, going into last week, we're leading the Big Ten, or at least in the conversation to lead the Big Ten. All of them in conversation for the college football playoff contention, the top 4 teams until we go to the 12 format. In that case, I think even still they're all in the conversation. But you have to look at it from a broad standpoint, like we do everything else. And Ohio State was a better team playing at home, and they felt comfortable. They showed it. They played with poise, and they got the job done. So just a little bit. I'm sure Michigan and those coaches, the coordinators, are watching film of this game. How can we take down this defense? Michigan is known in the college football landscape to be one of the best teams, if not the best, to prevent other teams from scoring, from putting points on the board. Last week, and against my Sparties, was a perfect example of that. So we'll have to see what happens. That's gonna, you're gonna see a unstoppable force meet an immovable object when Michigan and Ohio State face off. So it's gonna be exciting to see how that plays out. I'm already licking my chops for that game.
I am too. We love the game on the GCP, but let's bring it full circle. Talk about 2 more teams from the last 2 Power 5 conferences. We got the 7-0s, Oklahoma and the Florida State Seminoles, both sitting at 7-0 after a little bit of tests for both of them. Oklahoma narrowly escapes UCF. Dylan Gabriel's former coach, Gus Malzahn, had his number a little bit and wasn't as easy as they thought it was going to be. They were 17.5-point favorites, only ended up winning by 2 points. But survive and advance, that's what we say around here. And FSU at halftime kind of struggling with the Duke Blue Devils, and kind of like Alabama in the second quarter, just foot on the throttle. I believe they go on to win 38-20, or a score similar at 38-24, and just domination in the second half. And can either of these teams go on to run the gauntlet, finish unscathed? I got their remaining schedules up on the board if you're watching with us. Which one of these teams, both of them, who do you think has the better shot to run the table?
There's been question marks thrown at Florida State and their uncertainty to win certain games that should be win-now games. Obviously, both these teams in their respective conferences are atop the standings, Oklahoma being first in the Big 12 and Florida State being first in the ACC. But there's question marks on the Florida State side. I see more question marks with Florida State than I do with the Brett Venables version of the Oklahoma Sooners. And I like the Oklahoma Sooners team. I feel like they're back. They're back from the Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams era. And I like where they're at. I really do. And I guess somewhat nobody really expected Oklahoma to be this good going into this year. And they got some teams to play. They got Kansas. They got Oklahoma State still. BYU can throw you some surprises. So they got some contests on their board where they got to still concentrate and do their thing. But that doesn't mean these opponents for Florida State don't have their number. I got my money on Oklahoma to finish undefeated, and I see them making a run to the college football playoff, at least as things stand. Still got the Big 12 championship to deal with. But there's still a lot of question marks for Florida State and the Jordan Travis Florida State offense that I'm concerned about. I see some potential for some holes in that offense to be expedited and taken advantage of from their opponents. So we'll have to wait and see. But I got if I had to tip the scales, I'm tipping it in the favor of the Oklahoma Sooners right now. And I'm a big Florida State fan, so that takes a lot for me to say, but that's just how I see it.
All right. I'm going to go the other way with it. I think that Oklahoma, they're going to sustain a loss to one of these teams with a 5-2 record on their schedule. And on the other side of that, FSU, they handle Miami and Mario Cristobal. We all know his coaching capabilities or incapabilities, more or less. And you win against Miami, you got the conference locked up. I mean, you got North Alabama, whoever that is, coming to town, and then the Florida Gators is a non-conference matchup, but there's still going to be a lot of pride in it. But if you have the conference locked up, going to beat the Florida Gators is kind of a cherry on top, and I think they're going to do it with pleasure. So I think FSU, they're in a great spot, and I just don't have faith in good old Brenty Venables on the other side of things. I'm gonna stick with my guns, and I think that they're gonna take a loss, maybe two. So,
Oh, wow, maybe two.
We can agree to disagree tonight.
Hey, that's okay. And, I guess you can look at the UCF game, 29-31, barely won that game. You're by the skin of your teeth. You probably shouldn't have won that game. You do win it. You get away with murder, essentially, kind of like the Washington Huskies did against Arizona State. But you got the win. It's on a win. It's on the win column. You got to tally it. You got to add it. It goes down history as a win. It's not you won by 2 points. You got the win, right? So we could very realistically see a situation where both these teams are undefeated going into Selection Sunday. This could very realistically happen. So I guess if that does happen, say they're both undefeated come the end of it, what happens then? Because there's teams that are deserving of a spot. There's going to be teams that, you could see an undefeated team not be in the college football playoff. Can you imagine a world where that happens?
Yeah, man. We got a 12 team coming next year, right in time. And I want to start, we're going to, every week that I'm on the show, tease, what the 12 team playoff would look like according to us. We're not going to follow the CFP, line it up with them or anything, but power rank it according to what we believe are algorithms, and then kind of, have a little fun with that, ponder some of those matchups and what would happen. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so too, because we did that with the college football playoff, the 4-team. So you're saying do it with just the 12 team if it was in place right now?
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. We'll be doing that here in the coming weeks as things get more interesting. So I'm excited for that.
Yes, sir.
Good deal. That brings us to the end of the show. Cody, you got any final words, final thoughts for the people out there to send them into another week of college football?
Hey, you can know a sweep's coming, but you still got to stop it. Deion Sanders, baby.
Coach Prime. He's dealt with his fair share of adversity this season, and I think he knew it was coming, but I think he's handling it with grace, and he's just going to become a better coach because of it. He's going to have a better team, and I'm hopeful for him. I'm coming around for Deion Sanders and Coach Prime, so that's where I'm at.
Love to hear it.
Yeah, so good deal. Be sure to take advantage of all the college football we have left going into the 2024 season, the 2024 side of the 2023-24 season. Look forward to it. Start to make your own projections. Send them our way. We'd love to take a look at them, take a gander, and see where your mind's at. There's going to be some wild cards, especially if some of these teams, like we just mentioned, Oklahoma and Florida State win out. There's going to be some tough decisions for that college football playoff committee. So I'm hoping they are on the chopping block. They are in a position where they have to make a tough decision and maybe kick out a team with one loss that probably should be in, but just because there's undefeated teams, I feel like they can't be kicked out. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. In the meantime, check us out on social media at Gin Sports Network and at Gin College on Instagram. Check out our website, ginsportsnetwork.com, for all articles, IG posts, and updates. And we look forward to seeing you guys here next time on the Gin College Podcast. For now, I'm John J. II here with Cody Almasy. Have a great night.